Unfortunately, though, my experience with working like literally with hundreds of thousands of people, they're not comfortable in their own skin. They're not comfortable showing up as their true selves.
I'm the whole of me all the time. You don't see a different person to me professionally to what you see personally. I can't be anybody else.
To me, self-forgiveness is the ultimate act of self-compassion. No greater gift can you give yourself than to do the work and to forgive yourself.
Half a century ago, if somebody didn't care so deeply, I wouldn't actually be able to vote. I wouldn't have a voice. And so it's actually incumbent upon me to actually have that level of awareness, to think about the potential implications for your great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren.
My whole goal, my entire life, was to leave this world better than I found it. That's what has driven everything that I've done in life. So if it ended today, then great, done it. But I'm not done yet.
This is Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Let's explore what it means to lead, live, and listen with intention.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. Today's guest is actually somebody that I would have to say is going to actually bring a smile to your face no matter what is going on. It's the very core of what you do, right?
That's right.
Let me actually give you a little bit of an introduction, just to actually ease you into perhaps where the conversation might lead. So it's my very pleasure to actually introduce you to Dr. Elia. Now, let me actually just say Gourgouris. And I'm trying to say it with a Greek accent, and I may not have, but there it goes. Dr. Elia is actually also known as America's happiest doctor.
Happiness. I could be happiest too. Who knows?
Oh, the happiness. That's right. You are the happiest. Well, that's where it starts, right? You've got to radiate it out to make everybody else happy.
That's great. We're off to a great start already. That's great. Yeah.
Look, we're laughing already. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Elia is also the actual author of the #1 bestselling book, 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness, which has actually been translated into 5 languages. He has co-authored a highly acclaimed book, 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, which is a practical guide to emotionally dealing with pandemics and other disasters. He's the president and co-founder of the Kindness Factor International and just produced a documentary feature film, which was actually called For Such a Time as This, on the impact of kindness worldwide. And gosh, we can certainly do with that at the moment in the world. The first half of his career, he actually built a thriving private practice as a clinical psychologist, all word of mouth, before moving to become an executive coach working with C-suite leaders. He's an international keynote speaker, and his message is featured in respected publications and media all around the world. With his positive psychology background and through his books, keynotes, podcast interviews, and he's had 400 plus worldwide and counting, of course, with this, and executive coaching, he has helped hundreds of thousands of people, both in their careers and in their relationships, to achieve happiness and success in their personal and professional lives. As an inspirational speaker, he frequently presents at conferences focusing on happiness, corporate wellness, and mental health. And finally, well, he serves as an ambassador to Greece for kindness worldwide. He splits his time between the US, Greece, and Europe. So please actually welcome Dr. Elia. And let me tell you, hold on to your seats because you are going to have a bit of a laugh.
Thank you, Cathy. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. I'm excited. Let's go. Let's do it.
Well, you know, one of the things, and we opened up the discussion off screen, you know, talking about what is happening across the world. And I guess part of, you know, this podcast is in fact talking about consciousness. And maybe I might start there. You know, people often hear the word and maybe it's used loosely, but from where you sit, what do you actually think consciousness actually is?
I think it's awareness, being fully conscious, being fully present with all your senses. And beyond that, I think being fully present with your heart and your spirit. So I think consciousness goes, you know, way more than just having a positive mindset and be aware, but really having a very open heart. Lead from your heart and also the spirit. I'm a spiritual being, and I wholeheartedly believe in the saying that we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience, but rather spiritual beings having a physical experience. I see that the other way around, and I think however much time we have on this beautiful blue planet of ours, 20, 50, 80, 100 years, it goes by so fast. I'm in the second half of my life, so I'm closer to the exit than I was to the entrance. And I think of transitioning, and we've had so many friends that have passed away the last 2 or 3 years and continue to, even in the last couple of weeks since you and I spoke. And so the idea of transitioning, which is, of course, the most natural thing in the world, and we're all going to pass through that gate at some point, I think about that often. And I think, how am I contributing? I think it's kind of funny, Cathy, that, at the end of my introduction, you said, yeah, we split our time between Athens, Europe, and the United States. So a lot of my friends and colleagues, or just people that say, Elia, what's your story exactly? Like, are you retired? Are you semi-retired? Are you still working? And I'm like, none of the above. I'm contributing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as long as I continue to contribute, then it's good. And when my time comes where I no longer can contribute, then it's time for me to move on. So I don't see it in retirement. When you retire from something you love to do, I just see it as a contribution. And the call to action, I guess, for each one of us and your audience is, we all have a sphere of influence, right? How are you contributing?
Yeah.
Are you contributing with love and kindness, forgiveness, empathy, compassion?
Yeah.
Or are you contributing into the mayhem, violence, or anger, or destructiveness, or toxicity that is in ample supply in this world as we speak today even? So that's the question. If you're contributing the first way, great, keep doing it and expand if you can. But if you're not contributing in that manner, then maybe today is a good day to reflect and say, how many more days, months, years do I have left on this earth? How will I be remembered? What is my contribution?
Yeah.
Am I part of the solution or part of the problem? And only you can answer that in your heart. Nobody else can answer that for you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think some of the work that I actually do, I often ask, there's two things that I ask. One is, please don't tell me what you do. I really want to know who you are, to your very point. And people get stuck with that. They really don't know how to express themselves outside of what they do. And then the second thing is, if I was to actually ask you, what would it look like for you to say, yes, I've done it, when you take that last breath? What is it? What is it that you've actually contributed to? Right, so I love the fact that, without actually even discussing this, there is that incredible synergy in the way that you actually see and live life too, the way that I actually see and live life too. And I think that is what actually brings the happiness, that joy, because we literally are living life the way that we have chosen to.
And when you live your life in alignment with your heart, it's never work. It's never a chore. It's not stressful. It's like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed. So to answer your second question, if my life ended today, I can say I did it without any doubt in my mind. Now, not just because, and what is it that I did? My whole goal, my entire life was to leave this world better than I found it. That's what has driven everything that I've done in life. So if it ended today, then great, done it. But I'm not done yet. And right, because I think there's still more to contribute. In other words, I don't rest on my laurels, I guess, in some ways. I want to continue. And as the sphere of influence grows, I think there's an additional responsibility for us to use our voices. I don't know if you know this, but in a couple of weeks, I'm about to embark on a 4-country, 10 keynote speaking tour, starting in the United States, then Greece, of course, and then off to Amsterdam, and then Lisbon, finishing up at the World Happiness Summit. So contribution again, right? That's it. So the sphere of influence will grow. There's no doubt about it. So how do we show up? And one more thing, I would never ask your audience or anybody else to do something I'm not doing myself. If I'm not doing it, I'm like, Cathy, that's a great idea. I'm just not doing it right now, but it's a great idea. Maybe I should do it. If I say something, I'm doing it. Otherwise, I won't say it.
Yeah, I think that's actually key to really actually staying within alignment. I think so many people have learned what I would actually say the art of language, and that is telling people what they should do, but that's not necessarily what they're actually modelling. And, I always actually say to people, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. think about it. What are the consequences? And I don't mean tomorrow. I mean in 7 generations. And if we don't actually have that forethought, then are we really actually contributing in a positive way?
Maybe I'm not as deep as you are. I don't go 7 generations deep. I'm like, hey, within the next few years, whatever. But that's actually, you're really pulling back the lens. And I tend to see the big picture in my life. My wife said, you always seem somehow to pull in the movie, you pull the lenses back so you can see the big perspective and big picture. You do it even more than I do. Good for you. I need to learn something from you. How do you pull it even farther back?
Oh gosh, we can really actually go into a lot of depth. I think one of the things that I actually have considered is, have you heard of Nassim Taleb, Black Swan theory, right? And so whilst he actually has contextualized it in a mathematical sense, I actually contextualize it in life. And so it is actually about, everybody goes to first order thinking and that's where it sits. But it's actually, for me, second order, third order, fourth order, fifth order thinking. And in between all of those steps, it is what else? What else have I actually not considered? And it's not what if, because to me, what if is actually about the doubt. But what else is the positive? I want to find the solution. Because if I focus on the negative, then I'm actually just going around in a loop. Right. And so this is how we actually become generationally focused. One of my children actually say to me, not very long ago, and you would think that they would know how I think, but they said to me, Mum, why do you care so deeply? And, my response to that was, well, let me put it to you this way. Half a century ago, if somebody didn't care so deeply, I wouldn't actually be able to vote. I wouldn't have a voice. Yes. And so it's actually incumbent upon me to actually have that level of awareness, to think about the potential implications for your great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren.
That's pretty impressive. Like I said, I don't go that deep as much as you are. So it's not only food for thought for me in reflection. You and I will need to talk offline too, to learn more about how you do that. That's very powerful.
I would love to do that. And I think a lot of my lessons actually came from it. And I think I shared with you about 10, 11 years ago. I happened to be really privileged to live with a Maasai in Ngorongoro in Tanzania. And it was a really confronting and enlightening time for me. I was there with my 17-year-old daughter, and living in a community that is still actually ingrained in their cultural heritage, that, the Western world looks at them and think that they're actually uncivilized because they're semi-nomadic, there's no electricity, there's no water, right? But do you know what was fascinating? Whilst it was confronting, it actually allowed me to think about how is it that they're actually maintaining their culture whilst actually living in an environment that is really actually asking of them to do something different. And whilst some things, were challenging for me, it made me realise my subconscious bias and my privilege all at the same time. And so that's actually generations of culture that is being maintained. And what is the good that's come from that? And what are the things that, have benefited from change? And that's what I guess brought to mind of how do we actually integrate that without actually losing sight of who we are, and genuinely understanding that collaborations for the whole is the way that we really should be looking at, life. So it's not about you and me in our little community. It is about the collective across the world.
And you've had that unique experience, I think, in the Maasai. Honestly, they're going against the grain of the so-called progress in civilization to maintain their unique and beautiful culture. And I'm sure it's not easy. But I'm Greek, so I come from an ancient culture too, and very proud of that culture and so much wisdom. In a lot of ways, I feel like we were better off like 2,500 years ago. In some ways, I'm tongue in cheek, of course, in some ways, but the level of wisdom that was achieved back then is pretty remarkable because, all the sayings that you grew up, Aristotle or Plato or Sophocles or, and then so on, are not only applicable now, they're even more applicable now. So when you have something like that that transcends like thousands of years, you have to say, wow, maybe the ancients, regardless of continent and culture and so on, knew something very, very profound and deep, and maybe we should be getting more curious and less judgmental.
I love that. It's something that, has often actually played in the background of my, I'm going to say my consciousness or awareness. So, one of the things I guess is that we have actually lost sight of that incredible wisdom. And I think that that's actually really critical, the point that you've actually made. It has transcended times, thousands of years. That actual knowledge and that wisdom somehow has actually almost been considered as, well, that's old and we're moving with the future now. Well, the future actually doesn't mean we absolve ourselves from what we actually knew worked back then, and actually was perhaps the way that humanity was actually brought closer together as a collective, working in tribes. I mean, the Indigenous, the Aboriginal Indigenous still have a culture that is just so strong, and yet somehow we've pushed it to the side. So if I could actually ask you to just think about what it is that you've been able to perhaps reflect upon based on, ancient wisdom, and the way that happiness actually integrates into today's life. What would you say around that?
First of all, wisdom is not a fad.
I know.
That's why it transcends millennia. People say, well, what's your definition of happiness? You're the happiness doctor and so on. I'm like, listen, Aristotle said it 2,500 years ago, much better than anyone has since, I believe. And he said, happiness is the whole purpose and meaning of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Think about what he said. So how can you can improve upon what he said, and I believe it with all my heart. I do, that it is the purpose of life and the meaning of life, through our ups and downs, through the tragic events that take place, including my own life, to be able to maintain. Because when you show up as the happiest version of yourself, and it takes work, and happiness is a choice, and it's also a skill set. So there's a combination, right? I think the world is a better place when you show up like that. Because happy people who've done the work, it's not magic. You got to do the work. And the work is not easy at times.
Yeah.
When they do show up that way, though, they tend to have a positive impact in their close relationships, in their friendships, in their immediate and extended family, and whatever impact they have across the world in their communities and so on. So I feel like there becomes like a ripple effect. Because, I think I've shared this with you. Nelson Mandela for me was probably in my lifetime, I was too young. I don't remember Martin Luther King, but I obviously don't remember Gandhi either very much, but I do remember Nelson Mandela. He taught something so simple and so profound that certainly for the last 30 years has guided my life. He said, in life, either you win or you learn.
Yeah, yes.
End quote. That's it. So that changes, win or lose versus no. You have some successes, and then whatever appears at the time not to be a success, and the labels that we put them. Oh, I made a mistake, a human frailty, a human weakness, a setback, and so on. When you change that and get curious about it, say, rather than why is this happening to me and get into victimhood, say, why is this happening for me? And listen to what Nelson Mandela said. It's a game changer, because now finding that lesson, and the quicker we can find the lesson, the greater life is, honestly. You got to ask the questions. Otherwise, if things are happening to me, I'm going to be stuck in victimhood. And I know people, clients, patients of mine that are like for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, a lifetime of that. But when you switch that one word from to me to for me, a whole world opens up. And I can tell you, and I'm sure that's the same with you, Cathy, and the people that you love and respect and so on. Whatever successes we've had so far, the greatest lessons have not come from them. The greatest lessons have come from what at the time appeared to be failures, mistakes, weakness, and so on. But when you look back and say, you know what, I know exactly why that happened, because I wouldn't be the person that I am today had that thing not happened to me. Was it easy going through it? Of course not. Did you wish you could bypass and learn the lesson without it? Of course you would. That's just human nature. But that's not how we learn our lessons. So don't be afraid of the hard times. Don't be afraid of the challenges you're facing right now. Lean into it. Most human beings tend to, when they face a challenge, a serious challenge and so on, either into denial or victimhood, or they get mad, they get upset, or they run away, or they,
Yes.
meaning that they escape in an addiction or whatever the case may be, they escape rather. Like, no, don't escape, lean into it. Does it hurt? Yeah, it hurts right now, but you're a human being and you're experiencing something that's painful. But from that pain can come the greatest gift.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of the challenge. I know it's not easy going through it. Most of us are going through challenges right now as we speak. Lean into it and watch what happens. Actually, miraculous things happen when you lean into it.
You highlight something that I think a lot of people have a misconception around, and, particularly around happiness and joy. And people assume that, when you are often, happy, that you don't have challenges. And yet that is the total opposite.
That's never true. Show me one person that's always happy. That's never true. That's never even the happiest. That's not true on a daily basis. But it's choices too, though. How am I perceiving this? What's happening? I can still choose my response. I can choose to be grateful for it or to be angry about it or whatever. I can choose both. But if you're going to get mad, do it for half an hour, not for half your life. If you're going to feel like a victim, do it for 30 minutes, not for 30 years. And then pivot and begin to navigate your life in a way that's meaningful. Be a navigator.
Yeah, right. I had this very conversation yesterday with someone, and, even balance is an interesting perspective of how do I actually shift through that, right? I'm going to say experience, right? When we experience challenges, because it is, I think I look at life as we're here to experience it. What we choose to do with your words, what we choose to do with that, it's our choice. No matter what it is, it's our choice. You may not have the best choice that you want, but it's still a choice. And, talking about why is this happening for me, it's why is this happening through me is the phase that I look at. And I often say to people...
Can you explain that? Just I'm curious. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I often say to people, the way that I actually show up in life is to show you, what it is that I actually am, sharing with you. It's not to teach you, because teaching is actually traditionally academic. You've not necessarily experienced it. So when you have an experience, it is through me. So even when I actually, do workshops, I run programs, the way that I actually do it is I tell you the process, because that's how we teach. Traditionally, academics, actually teach a process. But then I actually shift and say, now I want you to actually stop being that academic teacher, because I know that you're actually sitting here to learn so you can do this too, so you can show others. But here's the difference. I want you now to experience what I'm saying. I want you just to sit and ground yourself and hear what I am saying and feel what you are experiencing. Because if you do not feel it and it does not go through you, you cannot do what I'm doing. Because everything I'm sharing is through me. I have lived it. And that's a really different proposition. And that is the storytelling part. But if people tell stories purely through somebody else, as opposed to this is literally what has happened for me, to your point, I can now actually share it with you through me.
I love that. That's beautiful.
It's the layering, right? And that is one of the things that I want to show people, that we can do things differently. Why? Because it then gives them agency to go on and do things on their own.
That increases also the authenticity of the message too. It's not something that I learned academically and so on. I've lived it. I've worked through it. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks. There were, difficulties, obstacles to overcome. Now I'm on the other side, and this is what I experienced. This was my process, and it worked because I am on the other side.
And I think, to your point, it is authentic. I'm the whole of me all the time. You don't see a different person to me professionally to what you see personally. I can't be anybody else. I remember actually sitting in Tanzania a couple of years ago, and, all of a sudden I had this notion of writing what I would call my version of a poem, which was actually understanding that I've just realized that I actually appreciate all the versions of me throughout my life. And you highlighted this. Everything is actually an experience to actually get us to where we are today. Everything.
Unfortunately, though, my experience with working like literally with hundreds of thousands of people, they're not comfortable in their own skin. They're not comfortable showing up as their true selves. There's a lot of lack of forgiveness, self-forgiveness particularly, I think, which I think is missing in action. To me, self-forgiveness is the ultimate act of self-compassion. Ultimate.
Yeah.
No greater gift can you give yourself than to do the work and to forgive yourself. And I take people through this process of self-forgiveness. It's actually not as hard as people think once they get started. It's not that hard. I have them write down everything in like bullet points. Write down all the things you haven't forgiven yourself for. It could be 5 things or 50 things, whatever. When you're done, I ask them to put a number next to each one of those statements from a scale of 1 through 10. 1 is, Cathy and I went out to dinner last night. I was wearing a white shirt and I spilled some red wine and I'm like embarrassed. That would be a 1. A 10 is, I actually killed another human being, like took somebody else's life. Because a lot of people go, oh, that's a 10. I'm like, have you murdered another? No. Have you molested a child? No. Have you raped? No. Okay, those are 10s. Whatever you think is your 10, maybe it's a 6 or 7 or an 8, but it certainly isn't a 10 because people have. And then once we do that, we sit down, they bring a piece of paper, and I have to tell you, it's the most spiritual sessions I've ever had.
Yeah.
And we start with the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s. They lighten their load, they gain some momentum through practice, and then we move on to the higher stuff. Yeah, until we're done with the list. And when we are done, we actually burn the piece of paper, physically, symbolically going up towards the heavens. And when we hug it out at the end, invariably, every single time, every single person, not 90%, 100%, have whispered in my ear, I wish I had done that sooner.
Yeah.
Because I've known and I've worked with people that I've held on to things that occurred over 50 years ago, half a century, meaning that they carried this dead weight for over 50 years. And literally that's the process. And it's the other thing they say is like, I feel like 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds have been lifted off of me. But the biggest thing is, I wish I had done that sooner in my life. So don't procrastinate that. If you've done the work, it's transformational. You know what it feels like to be light and unburdened. But if you haven't done the work, don't beat yourself up over that. It's pretty normal. Most people have not done the work. But find someone that's a trusted advisor, a coach, a friend, a counselor, a therapist, whatever. Find somebody that you feel comfortable sharing. Because a lot of times these are like sometimes secrets that they've never even shared with their spouse. I've first stopped at people that have carried on secrets, for decades. And they feel such a relief afterwards. So that's why I call it that self-forgiveness is truly the act of self-compassion. I can't think of anything greater than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess that actually goes to the very point that I was sharing earlier. It's through you. How is it that we can actually show compassion to others if we don't do it to ourselves? It is so powerful. And thank you for actually sharing that. It is something that I actually do at my retreats. And it is the very thing that people have to, say to me in that I'm actually leaving lighter.
Of course.
Have used the words.
Of course.
And the other is I thought I had actually done the work.
I know, but they haven't. When they haven't, I know they say that, but that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, my wife, we've been together for 35 years. She goes, Elia, how come you don't have anything on your self-forgiveness list? Which I don't. I'm like, number one, I don't take myself so seriously.
Yeah.
Like there's a lightheartedness. And now, of course, because I'm older and I've got gray hair, I can always blame old age now if something happened. Like we take ourselves way too seriously. Like we don't have to take ourselves that seriously. But we need to be kind. We talk about kindness, we all often think about kindness as kindness towards somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's got to be, that can't be the part of the equation. Part of the equation is also being kind to ourselves. Because the way that we speak to ourselves, like the inner critic, we would never say that to people we love. We would never.
Yeah.
And yet, how come we do it? And I want to bring it all the way back to happiness. As I'm about to embark on my speaking tour, every talk that I start, I'm like, I ask the audience, regardless of where I'm at, if you ask any parent, regardless of ethnicity, nationality, socioeconomic status, gender, religious affiliation, or whatever, what would you like for your children? I just want them to be.
Yeah. Happy.
So, yeah, and everybody says that every single time, happy and healthy. So
Yeah.
then my thing to the audience back when they say that is, okay, look how easy it was for you to say it. The answer came instantly, immediately. But if this is true for our kids and grandkids and so on, shouldn't it also be true for us?
Yeah.
I just want them. It's always I just want them to be happy kids, right? How about I just want me to be happy? That even sounds awkward, even saying it. But why is it awkward? Right?
Yeah. It's interesting. I often talk about us being the mirror, and we know that through psychology, we know that we actually absorb more in what we see than what we actually hear. And yet that simplicity of being the mirror of happiness doesn't actually resonate, does it? It's an oversight.
Yeah, but why don't we say? To me, it's so easy to answer that for kids. Like I've never heard somebody say something other than happy and healthy. That's it. There's no third answer.
Yeah.
And yet, when you personalize it, why is there such a hiccup? Like, why is there such a difficulty or a strain to actually say, yes, that should also be true for me?
I guess somewhere along the line, there is an attachment to guilt or, that it's selfish.
Is it?
I don't know.
Is it?
What do you think?
And part of like happy people practice massive self care. Like self care is a part and parcel. And for me too, I don't compromise that. People have asked, isn't self care selfish? I'm like, if it is, double down and do more. That's right. Is it though? I mean, I guess you can get self-absorbed. I don't see self-care in that way. To me, self-care is not self-absorption or narcissism or anything like that. It's like filling your bucket, whether you do it physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and continue to do it on a daily basis. It's not a once in a blue moon or when I have the time or when I have the money and all that stuff. No, on a daily basis, make it a priority because as a result of that, when your bucket is full, then you can walk around and help other people. And people said, well, you can't help other, it's like the whole airplane, your mask, your oxygen mask and so on. Can you really help somebody else if you don't practice self-care? You can. And a lot of people do it until they get burned out.
Exactly.
So it's not like, it's like, yes, I know lots of people in my private practice, I had 70% were women who were nurturing, loving, giving to their families, to their kids, to their husband, and so on. However, they didn't give to themselves. And at some point, they got sick and physically sick. So in other words, the body was forcing them. Sometimes they would even get like a cancer, like bad stuff happening. And I'm like, hey, your system, your body is trying to tell you something, communicating with you. Listen, are you listening or not? But I have to take care of, no, you don't take care of anybody else. But I have to cook. Nope, you can't cook. But I have to. No, you don't have to. The only thing you have to do is right now take care of yourself. And it was so uncomfortable and awkward until they learned that taking care of themselves. But I love serving people. I love serving. I'm like, so do I. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to pay a huge price for it. And at some point, you won't be able to help anybody. Or they would get resentful. Maybe they didn't get physically sick, but they would get resentful of that. I'm like, okay. The whole point of giving and being of service is on do it from an open heart and an open mind. You never get resentful as long as you're taking care of yourself. If you neglect yourself, yes, at some point you're going to get resentful. No question about that.
Yeah, it's such an important point. But we push ourselves to that point. So it reaches a crisis for that realization to actually, come to, I guess, that landing point. And you're so right. It is actually that I resent the fact that I have actually done all of this, but it's a choice. You made the choice, right? Either way, you made the choice.
I know, but I'm asking people not to get to the crisis point. Like, don't
Yeah.
wait until you have a crisis or you have some kind of diagnosis that's pretty bad. Proactively, consciously, mindfully, and deliberately
Mm.
begin to, introduce. So if it's not comfortable right now, if you've never done it before, it's okay. Start small, baby steps. At some point, you're going to get very, very comfortable in your self care, without any guilt. By the way,
Yeah.
no guilt
Yeah.
around that.
No, no attachment to guilt. What are the two things that you actually don't compromise on when it comes to your practices or your rituals?
No question about it that self care is to me is yeah. There's no compromise there. Every day, that's 5 days a week, every single day.
Yeah.
And I think the other one is, I'm a people person, so for me, how you show up is very important. Showing up for people in times of need
Yeah.
and acting acts of kindness and so on may not always be convenient. Sometimes it could be 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's when they need you. That's when you need to show up.
Yeah.
So it's very important for me how I show up with my family, extended family, clients, patients, and so on. I want to be fully there and hold space for them, no matter where they are. I don't care what time of day it is. And I take pride in that. Like I have a big heart and I show up big for people. It's actually kind of easy. It's not that hard. It's just a choice. You just show up. And, I'm countless. My wife only noticed, like, how many times have you taken people to the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning? Or like, that's what they need. That's what you do. Like, I can sleep when I come home. You know what I mean? It's just, you do it because it's the right thing to do. You don't have to think about it even. It's not even like, should I do it or not do it? Just do it. And life is rich that way when you show up that way with people because your relationship are deeper, more profound. The one area that I can get better at is asking for help. I know that's a
Yeah.
struggle for me. It's much more comfortable than to give and to serve others. And, just I've learned that later on in my life, it's like, hey, it's okay to ask for your needs to be met too.
Yeah.
But it's not comfortable. It's not easy. It's not like giving is second nature to me. Receiving is something that I've constantly had to. But you know what I found out? Every time that I've asked somebody for help about something, it doesn't have it. They're happy to do it. Like we thought you'd never ask. So,
Yeah.
and it feels good to be on the receiving end too. Because think about it. If you never allow anybody else to serve you, you're depriving them from the very
Yes.
gift right? Isn't that true? Think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You've taken that choice away from them, right? You've made the decision. I often actually reflect on that. You know what? You were actually sharing something there as you were giving some insights on what you actually do. We can always make an excuse as to why today actually, I don't have time. That actual pattern of, I'll do it tomorrow actually then becomes the priority of choice. And so no matter what it is, I think what you're saying is no matter what it is that actually brings you that joy, it's a no compromise, whether it's the meditation in the morning, doing exercise, whatever it is, there is no choice, and I think that's actually the key because we can always actually find a reason why not to. And then that just becomes the norm.
But why leave something for tomorrow that you can do today, though? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's how my brain works. But more importantly, that's just in terms of doing. More important to me is like show up when people need you the most. Not when
Yeah.
it's rarely is it convenient. Oh, that's a perfect time to help somebody. No, it does. It's not like that. But if they need you, show up. I'm telling you right now, and I promise you will never regret showing up, even though it's inconvenient for somebody afterwards. You might be tired, you might be exhausted, and so on. But if they're in their time of need, don't you want to be the person that, yeah, I can always count on Cathy to show up. I can always count on Elia to show up. That's what they do. Yes, that's what we do. That's right.
I actually had the privilege of receiving very random text messages from people that I don't know who have actually said, I was given your details by such and such. And they explain the situation and can you actually talk? And I remember the first time that happened and I thought, I don't even know who you are. And then there was that realization of if they dared to have the courage to reach out to a stranger, oh my gosh, what a privilege.
Right.
Showing up, right?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people are scared to do it. They're awkward about it. They don't know what to do. It's like, how would you have liked to have been treated?
Yeah.
I have two friends right now who are, they're dying. I mean, stage 4 cancer. They've got weeks left to live and so on. It's hard. I'm going to miss them.
Yeah.
But you still show up for them. Hold their hand. Even, is it awkward? Yeah, it can be, certainly.
Yeah.
But love them, show up, look at them in the eye, make eye contact, hold their hand, stroke their back, sit in silence.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just sitting there. Well, how's that helpful? Believe me, it's helpful. Holding somebody's hand when they're like, in and out. Just be there.
Yeah.
It really doesn't cost anything, but it's very, very meaningful for them.
Yeah.
And in the end, for us too, I think, when we show up that way. Because we get benefits too. It's not just like altruistic for the other person. I think we also benefit by showing up that way.
Yeah, abundantly. I always say to people, I get more than what I receive. Don't ever think that I'm actually, it's hard on me. It's not. What I walk away with, I couldn't actually get in any other way.
Right.
So
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to ask you, there's so much that we've actually covered today, but if there's one thing that you would like to leave the audience, those that are going to be listening to this podcast, what would that be?
Do not procrastinate your happiness, meaning forget the whens. When I'm in the right relationship, when I have a family, when I get married, when I have kids, when my kids grow up, when I have enough money, when I have enough time, when I retire. Forget all the whens. There's no guarantees that any one of us will be here tomorrow. So make it a priority. Practice your self-care. Put your happiness front and center. And pursue it like you pursuing the greatest gift. Because, like I said before, the happiest version of you walks around on this planet. You're blessing so many people's lives you don't even know. Just by your essence, your countenance, your brightness of being, your light.
Yeah.
Don't procrastinate that.
I love that. And so for, those of you who will actually be listening, this isn't just a thing to do once. It's to actually practice. I say to people, practice living life. Yeah. That's what is actually being shared today. Thank you so, so much. There was so much that we actually covered today. I think I could actually speak to you forever.
Likewise. The feelings are mutual, Cathy. I'm very intrigued by some of the things you talked about. I'm like, man, we need to talk some more, and because I want to learn some of the things you're talking about. Like, you go a lot deeper than I do. You do.
Maybe we can actually make this a thing. Maybe we can make this a global phenomena that we actually travel the world and actually show up for people.
I think this is like part 1 of many parts. I think there'll be a part 2 and a part 3 coming up. There's more. So thank you for inviting me. It's been an honor. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So for anybody who is genuinely looking at how do I actually make my life happier, please actually look at both the books that I have actually shared earlier. Happiness is actually a way of living and it is a choice. And I'm actually so privileged to have actually crossed your path. So thank you again for being here today.
Thank you,
and I look forward to the next time.
Me too. Absolutely.
This was Let's Pay Attention, Hacking Consciousness. Stay awake, lead with heart, be bold enough to listen deeply. I'm Cathy Dimarchos. Until next time, be the impact